Hey guys, let's talk about last night's episode of The Vampire Diaries. This show has just gotten so convoluted, so complex. I mean, half the time I don't even know what's going on anymore. But what I do know is that Bonnie wants to be the anchor. Why? So that she can have a foothold on both the human world and the death world. And she wants to do this so that all of her friends can actually see her and talk to her and she can touch people. And she feels that if she can do this, then I think she'll be much happier. So we have to get Tessa on board. And once Tessa gets on board, the plan is in action. And she needs to have the blood of the doppelgangers. So Elena, Catherine, and Amara all basically donate their blood so that we can get Bonnie back. And while Tessa is in the middle of doing this spell, Silas tries to have it come to an end and he interrupts it and his power goes out. And when that happens, Stefan swoops in and grabs Amara. And Stefan does this so that he can lure Silas out to the woods. And he wants to do this because he wants Silas dead. He is just still haunted by being locked in this vault, which was then in the water for 3 months, and he wants to make Silas pay. So when Silas gets out there, Stefan and him get into this huge fight, and he ends up stabbing and killing Silas. And when Amara sees this, Amara is just basically wants everything to end. She is tired of being the anchor and she wants to kill herself. So she takes the knife out of Silas and she stabs herself. And ultimately what I believe this is going to do is it's going to put them both on the same side so they can sort of be dead together on the other side. And so when this happens, of course, Damon swoops in and is trying to save her because they don't want her to die before Tessa can bring Bonnie back. So while Amara's halfway dead, Tessa's doing this spell, and Jeremy and Bonnie are talking to each other because Bonnie's like, hey, we have to say goodbye to each other because Amara's dying and this is it. Like, this is the last time we're going to be able to communicate. And then he tells Bonnie that he loves her and he touches her face and all of a sudden he can feel her. So the spell worked. Tessa brought Bonnie back and now she's the new anchor. So she has a foothold on both sides, which is kind of crazy. And when it happened, I was thinking to myself, I'm sure this is not going to be good news for Bonnie because as we all know that anything good in Bonnie's life has to be destroyed very quickly. So towards the end of the episode, Tessa is standing there in a room and she's talking with Catherine. And Catherine wanted her to cure her from this rapid aging syndrome that she's under right now. And Tessa had agreed to do it. But then when Catherine shows up, she's like, I'm not helping you. I've learned my lesson for trying to prolong life and do all this stuff. And all of a sudden she looks down and Tessa's like standing in a pool of blood. And she basically kills herself so that she can be on the other side with Silas. I don't get it. I just don't get it. So Tessa's gone and all of a sudden Bonnie's standing in the room by herself and she sees her. She's like, Tessa, how did you get here? And she's like, I'm dead. And she tells Bonnie that now that she's dead, she's going to have to pass through Bonnie to get to the other side. And she also tells her that every single person that dies and has to pass through to the other side will have to go through Bonnie. And it's going to hurt like a bitch. So she goes through Bonnie. It's kind of like the movie Ghost, except it's not some romantic scene between Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. It is like torture. And she screams and she's just like bent over in pain. And like I said, I just knew that Bonnie was not going to end up in some happily ever after with Jeremy. So that is the end of that. And on the B storyline this episode, we had Catherine's daughter, Nadia, who basically wants to bond with her mother. And Catherine, who's all bitchy in her human side, is really having no part of it. And because she's rapidly aging, I don't think she feels that she has any reason to want to bond with her daughter because she's going to be gone soon enough. And Nadia comes to her and says she's going to go back to Bulgaria and she wants her to come. And Catherine's just like, beat it. Listen, we have no reason to bond. There's nothing for us to do. I'm leaving. You can do what you want. And she leaves. So Catherine is off doing her own thing, and her daughter is apparently going to go back to Bulgaria and live her own life. So Caroline hears this and she's like, what? This is your daughter? Like, obviously in all confusion because nobody knows. Catherine didn't tell anybody when she found out a couple of episodes ago. And then Stefan now is burying Silas. And, Stefan's been going through some issues because, he's gotten all of his memories back and he's not very happy with all those revelations, and he's still reeling from being locked in this vault. And he says to Elena and Stefan and Damon that he wishes when the door had opened that it was actually Elena there to rescue him and his brother, but they were not. They were basically off together somewhere. And, I think this is really haunting him. And at the end, he's burying Silas and he's like having a panic attack. And he basically says, like, I thought, he's like, let it stop, let it end. And he's having all these flashes of being back in the water. And I think, he thought after killing Silas was going to help him get over all of this. And clearly it did not. So we'll see what happens with Stefan in the coming episodes. Is this going to turn him back into the Ripper? Hopefully, because I really like that part of Stefan. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with this storyline. So that's pretty much it. I mean, the episode was all right, but again, it's just getting so convoluted. And I'm hoping now that Silas and Amara are donezo. This brings it back to like a simpler storyline that's not so far-fetched and Tessa's not back and all that nonsense. So that's my review of The Vampire Diaries. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. Bye.